With the summer holidays at their peak in the month of August, we typically see the market gear down as the pace of sales declines. And this was certainly the case this year as we saw the number of sales continue to remain below the 10-year sales average for the month of August. So how is this impacting prices and what has changed now that we're in September? I'm Adina Dragasanu with the Dina YVR Vancouver Real Estate Group here with your September 2024 market update. Let's jump right into the numbers and take a look at what's happening. Let's start off looking at sales. We had just over 1,900 sales reported on the MLS in the month of August. This is down 18% relative to July, it's down 17% relative to this time last year, and it's 26% below the 10-year sales average for the month of August. Looking at this by property type, we saw that detached home sales decreased by 14% relative to this time last year, whereas attached townhomes and duplexes decreased by only 12% relative to this time last year. And the biggest decline was in the condo apartment segment, where sales decreased 20% relative to this time last year. So what were sellers doing in the month of August? Well, we saw fewer sellers putting their home for sale on the market. We had only 4,100 homes newly listed for sale in the month of August. This is down 26% relative to July, and it's up about 4% relative to this time last year. However, it's still 2% below the 10-year sales average for the month of August. While we saw fewer sellers putting their homes for sale on the market in the month of August, we saw total inventory levels accumulate as a result of fewer sales. By the end of August, we had 13,800 homes listed for sale in total on the MLS. This is down about 4% relative to July, but it's up 37% relative to this time last year, and it's an increase of 21% relative to the 10-year sales average. So how is all of this impacting prices, and what do we expect to see in the coming months? As you recall, our leading indicator showing us if prices are on their way up or down is our sales to active listings ratio. And simply, we're looking at the number of sales in a given month divided by the active listings left over at the end of that month. And when this ratio is above 21% for a sustained period of time, typically we see upward pressure on prices, whereas when it's below 12% for a sustained period of time, we see downward pressure on prices. And anything between 12 to 20%, we're typically in balanced market conditions where prices stabilize. In the month of August, our sales to active listings ratio continued to remain in balanced market territory, although it did decline to 14.3%. This is down from 17% in the month of July, and it's been on a steady downward trend since the peak in March when it was at 24% and it was a very hot seller's market. By property type, the ratio shows us that we're currently in a buyer's market for detached homes at 9.6%. For attached townhomes and duplexes, we're currently in balanced market territory at 18%. And for condo apartments, we're also in balanced market territory at 17.2%. While the overall average of the market shows us that we're in balanced market territory, we're seeing big differences based on location and also price point. For example, if we look at the downtown market, we see that it's currently in buyer's market territory with a sales to active listings ratio of 11%. In the month of August, we saw sales decline by 21%, and inventory levels also declined by only 5%. However, certain segments are in seller's market territory. For example, the price point of $700,000 to $800,000, which is an entry-level price point for one-bedroom condos, is currently at 22% sales to active listings ratio. We see a similar trend looking across different market types. For example, on the west side of Vancouver, for the detached homes, we see that we're in buyer's market territory with a 7% sales to active listings ratio. In the month of August, we saw sales decline by 30% and inventory levels decline by 5% as well. But again, the entry-level price bands are in seller's market territory. On the west side of Vancouver, that means that the segment between $2.25 million to $2.5 million are currently sitting at 24% sales to active listings ratio. Looking at the attached segment on the west side of Vancouver, we see that it's in balanced market territory with 17% sales to active listings ratio. In the month of August, we saw sales decline 13% and inventory levels decline 7%. But again, that entry-level segment, which for condos is $800,000 to $900,000, is currently at 40% sales to active listings ratio. And when we look at the price point between $1 million to $1.25 million, which is entry level for two-bedroom condos, it's at 25% sales to active listings ratio. And this is similar when we look across to the east side of Vancouver. In the detached segment, we see that we're in buyer's market territory with an 8% sales to active listings ratio. Sales in the month of August declined 49% and inventory levels declined only 4%. But again, those entry-level price bands, which for the detached homes is $1.25 to $1.5 million, we're sitting at a 57% sales to active listings ratio. And the range of $1.5 million to $1.75 million is currently at 21%. In the attached segment on the east side of Vancouver, we see that overall it's in balanced market territory with a 19% sales to active listings ratio. Sales declined 18% in the month of August and inventory levels declined 6%. But again, those entry-level segments are still in seller's market territory. So on the east side of Vancouver for condos, we see that between 500 to 600,000, we're currently at 32% sales to active listings ratio. And the segment of 1.25 to 1.5 million is currently at 30% sales to active listings ratio. So how is all of this impacting prices? The HPI composite benchmark price for all property types finished off at $1,195,900 in the month of August. This is down 0.1% relative to July, and it's down almost 1% relative to August last year. Looking at this by property type, we see that the benchmark price for detached homes is currently $2,048,400. This represents a decrease of 0.1% relative to July, and it's still an increase of 1.8% relative to August last year. For attached townhomes and duplexes, we see that the price point is currently $1,119,900. This is a decline of 0.5% relative to July, and it's an increase of 0.8% relative to August last year. For condo apartments, the HPI benchmark price is currently at $768,200. This is unchanged relative to July, and it's a 0.1% decrease from August last year. So the big question is, what's ahead for our market? Everyone wants to know what's going to happen this fall. Obviously, interest rates have declined again in early September, and we expect possibly a few more rate declines as we come into the fall. What we saw in the summer is that a lot of buyers were sitting on the sidelines, hesitant and wondering if they should buy in the summer or they should wait until these rate declines happen. And what we've seen in the first 2 weeks of August is that many of those buyers are starting to jump off the sidelines and make moves on properties that were sitting on the market. We've had a few listings that were challenging to sell over the summer months with the low activity, and all of a sudden we've had offers come in. In one case we had multiple offers come in, and we've also seen that for some of our buyers who are looking, they're now competing on some properties. So it seems like the anticipation of the rate declines are already making buyers start to jump back in the market. But I think the other thing that's happening is that buyers are seeing that we're not seeing that increase in inventory that we were in the spring. And for the most part, what we noticed in the market in the spring is that the big surge in inventory was driven by a lot of investors selling off condos. And this was due to the changes to the capital gains exemptions, changes to the tenancy regulations, and also a mismatch between where rates were at and where rents were at. Now that we've cleared through a lot of that inventory, we don't see the same signs in the market of investors calling us to list their properties for sale. So I think that inventory levels are actually going to be more subdued relative to what we saw in the spring. And if inventory levels do taper off while buyer activity heats up, it's likely that market activity is going to start heating up again as we head into the fall. If you're thinking of making a move this year and would like to discuss your options, you could schedule a consultation with me by clicking the link here below. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you're watching this on Instagram, you could click the link in my bio. If you'd like to see a detailed breakdown of what's happening in the market, you could subscribe to our newsletter by clicking the link here below on YouTube. And you could also subscribe to my YouTube channel here and follow me on Instagram at adina.yvr. Have a great rest of the month, and I can't wait to see you in October.